Hi. Well, just got back from Shiva Shakti Festival. Quiet weekend, really. Not an awful lot of hand reading to be done there, but some interesting handprints nonetheless. And I thought I'd share a few things that I've discovered with you today. So let me just get the screen share up and we'll have a look at some of these handprints. And the first one I want to talk about is this handprint here. You can see from these hands, this is someone who's got 10 whorl fingerprint patterns. Every single fingerprint pattern, every single thumb has whorls. You can see also there on this hand, there are also some loops of playfulness and a loop of sensitivity down there. But having 10 whorls on a hand is not particularly usual. But this person is Chinese. And whorls occur much more frequently in the hands of Chinese people than they do in the hands of Europeans. About 50%, 51%, something like that, of Chinese fingerprints are whorls, according to anthropological studies. So we would expect to see 5 or 6 whorls on average in a Chinese person's hand. So it's still unusual to see 10. So that's kind of a rare kind of experience to have 10 whorls on a handprint in one go. What's interesting about this hand, though, is that you can see that the air and the earth lines are separated. So if you look at the way those two lines, they're not joined at the beginning. So you've got the air line separate from the earth line in both cases. And that was particularly significant for this young woman because of her relationship to her family, which was very poor, and also because she tends to experience dissociation. She's doing quite a lot of different meditational practices, and in so doing, has ended up in the kind of dissociated states. And I see that kind of very much reflected by that separation of the air and earth line. Simply, you can think of it, the earth line to relating to the body and the air line relating to the mind. And with those two lines separated like that, that can indicate that kind of dissociative distinction between those two. I mean, people always talk about these two lines as showing someone who's got a very strong independence. And clearly, someone who's got 10 whorls does have a strong sense of their own identity and a strong sense of independence. But when you get the separation of the air and earth line like that, the independence is usually a formal response to a lack of support, lack of closeness, a lack of trust built up through proper bonding with the parents and the family. And that proved to be the case in this particular instance. So that's quite an interesting distinction to make. You can see independence in the hand in different kinds of ways. Some of them are kind of inherent qualities or needs of the person, and some of them are actually a response to difficult circumstances, particularly during childhood. All right. So that's a handprint with 10 whorls, and let's go to the next one on. Let's look at this one. And this is a hand of somebody with 10 loops, which is just the opposite end of the extreme, really. This woman was a Russian woman, and most interestingly, in her case, was she had earth quality skin texture. It's really rare to find earth quality skin texture, and more rare to find it in the hands of a woman than in the hands of a male. And she's kind of torn between a life involving nature and business. She's kind of got a strong business head on her strong straight airline. She's got a loop of seriousness. So there's a kind of strong need for her to be involved in some kind of business and to earn money, which is what the earth skin wants to earn, have that kind of financial security and stability. But also clearly there a strong need to be in nature and to be around the natural world and to have a relationship to the earth in this broader sense, whether that's horticulture and gardening, or whether that's working with stone or wood or with natural materials in some kind of way. And actually, in fact, what she does and what she was doing at the festival, she sells alkaline water. So she's into purified water, and her business is the selling of purified water. At the moment, she's not living in the countryside. She'd like to be living in a rural environment, but she's not. So that's unfulfilled for her. But such is life when you have young children. You have to, and she's single, so she needs to be financially stable to provide for herself and her family. You can't quite see it in this photograph of the hand, but she's actually got a loop of sensitivity down here as well, which kind of heightens the sensitivity to the water element. And I asked her if she was good at dowsing, and she said yes, of course. So she has that kind of sensitivity that's shown by that pattern, but in relationship to natural environment and the natural world. So that was a very interesting hand to look at too, to see somebody with an earth textured skin. But the third handprint I want to show you is this woman here, a younger woman, with a very clear and distinctly marked Simian line. And as you probably know, Simian lines occur quite frequently in the hands of people with Down syndrome, but only on about 1 to 2% of people without Down syndrome. So it's relatively unusual to see a Simian line, and you can see it's very strongly indicated in her right hand and not present in her left hand. And again, that's relatively unusual because normally when you see a single Simian line in the hand, it's more often present in the passive hand and not in the active hand, and this woman is right-handed. And she knew she had a Simian line, as often people with Simian lines do. They kind of go, oh, you know, I always noticed my hand had only got 2 lines and only got 1 line across it. However they articulate that, but they're aware that their hands are a little bit different from other people. And she, of course, had looked stuff up on the internet, and she knew it was called a Simian line, but she hadn't found any satisfactory explanation of it. And in her case, and I think this is quite common manifestation for the Simian line. When you get a line that goes across the hand like that, it kind of acts as a complete barrier or block. And I think of that block as being around the solar plexus kind of area. But energetically, what it suggests is a kind of holding back or withholding of emotion. Here, the waterline is crashing into the airline and is subsumed into her interests, her hobbies, whatever her mind is interested in. She gets obsessed about things and totally focused on activities. But what she shared with me, what I thought was most important about this one, was that she had great difficulty articulating and expressing her emotions and expressing what she felt. And as you can see with this line, it doesn't go up between the fingers, and you can see in her passive hand, it goes right up between the fingers. And when you get the line staying low in the palm like that, it's almost like all the feelings are internalized. And for her, that was a kind of huge blockage that she couldn't actually articulate herself emotionally. So what's interesting is she's an extraordinarily good singer, and she's about 30, I think. And has been singing for a long time, but started in her youth. And it's been singing that has enabled her to articulate and express her feeling. And I think that's really interesting because obviously the solar plexus area of the body is related to where the diaphragm is located, and a tightness in that area will restrict the diaphragm. But singing, of course, will cause a lot of movement in that area because singers use their diaphragms to breathe, and so that diaphragmatic breathing will be activated. And of course, singing is also a very large part of that is actually expression of emotion. So I only had a short reading with her, but I would like to explore this with her in more detail. But it struck me that what singing was for her was a kind of therapeutic means by which she could resolve the kind of inhibited emotion that she has, and the kind of fact that her emotions get stuck inside her. And so it's kind of an effective way of releasing that. Yeah, in a 15-minute hand reading, the Simian line is all the only thing you're going to be talking about because it's such a dominating feature. And in fact, it's what she needed to know. Although I did also address the quality of the fingerprint pattern. Now, unfortunately, the photograph doesn't do this justice and you can't see it, but she had a double loop on the index finger of the passive hand and a kind of variant whorl. It was an incredibly distinctive pattern. It was like a sort of a whorl with a little sort of loop underneath the whorl. It was quite an unusual pattern, like one I've never seen before, but I just, because of the 2 triradii, I just classified it as a whorl, but it was a very distinctive and unusual fingerprint pattern. And having the double loop on the passive hand index finger, of course, means the kind of emotion extremes that people would have with Simian lines is echoed by the double loop pattern on the index finger, and would have been, I mean, she said her life was tumult and confusing and emotionally full of roller coaster rides, with a double loop and the energy of a Simian sort of fueling that. And the quest, of course, is to kind of create that kind of independence and autonomy by showing by the whorl on the active hand index finger. And she's an extraordinary good singer, and she performed at the festival, and that singing is her life and her work. So it's something that she does, and she has a very distinctive and idiosyncratic voice, and a distinctive and idiosyncratic way of singing. So that's clearly marked out in the fingerprints as well. Yeah, so there was a couple of other interesting handprints, but those are the ones I wanted to show you. Just very sort of simple ones, like for example, there was a woman who came, she had a radio loop on a passive hand index finger, and an arch on the active hand index finger, and in the course of that conversation, it was like, okay, so you're somebody who specialises in some kind of therapeutic or counselling kind of work, but with someone with an arch, you might have trained as a nurse or a social worker. And she, in fact, was a clinical nurse and was a specialist in kind of therapeutic applications and counselling within the nursing profession. And another woman who had what I like to call the psychologist airline, who was a hypnotherapist, air skin, long hair finger, long hair, straight hairline, and yeah, a psychologist and was specialising in hypnotherapy. So, which is always a reminder that the features of the hand that when they stand out like that, it's very easy to work out what job somebody does from looking at the hand features, mainly the fingerprint patterns, of course. So hand shape, skin texture, and fingerprints will normally get you their profession, the vocation, quality of the fingers and formations of the lines will often show you about their trauma or their experiences within life. And the examples that I had at this festival illustrated those points quite nicely. All right, so onwards and upwards. Next weekend we'll be at the Mind Body Spirit Fair in Tauranga, and then we've got a couple of other festivals coming up after that as well. So I will do some more reports on those, and I'm looking to do a little talk on the Simian line, since that's come up as well. But that'll be for another day. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.